Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Real Talks. I'm your host, David Steele, and this is actually a bonus episode. Well, I wouldn't say bonus because it's a Monday, but we have the whole crew here. Um, we have Tyler.
What's
Destiny
up?
just stepped away for a moment, but we have there. She's back, and we have our co-host Kyle.
What's
And what's
up?
going on, everybody? How was everybody's Sunday experience? And I know, Destiny, you went to a little celebration last night. We'll have to get some info on that later on. Um, yeah, how was everybody's weekend?
It was good. Good. Restful. Good.
Good,
Yeah.
good. Kyle, how was your weekend?
It was all right. I mean, I think yesterday kind of sucked. I went to a flea market because I went there last week and they had an antique store and they had a Yoda there that I wanted to get. But then when I went there yesterday, it was gone. So I was like, no, I missed
Yeah.
out. But
And
aside from that, it was
Destiny,
pretty good.
yeah, there you go. Destiny, how was your weekend? So tell us, how was the SAGs?
Yeah, SAGs were great. Except for Mark Wahlberg said women are talking, and I want to know. I want to watch
Yes.
the movie. I want to watch.
So
that is-
I haven't seen it. I know the winners. I know there's some backlash because of some drama that happened. There's gonna be a whole show later on, guys. As soon
Yeah,
as we're done with
exactly.
this, we're gonna get to Matthew Anderson, and he is going to break down everything that happened and the winners and the losers and the consequences of all this. But
Yeah.
we're not here for that. We are
No,
here
we're here for
for
the
The Last of Us. Another fantastic episode last night. Everybody that's played the game, Kyle, myself, Destiny had a little, but Tyler did not have any idea.
No.
Now, quick question. When you saw this, did you think that this was actually part of it, or did you know this was a flashback?
Oh, I knew it was a flashback with everything. And I mean, here's the thing too. Like, I mean, it starts out with Joel and Ellie in the house, so you can kind of tell in the show itself that it was a flashback, and I thought it was just brilliantly done. The They were talking about it at the end of the episode on how beautiful the mall set was, and I fully agree. And I love the tidbit of info where I think it might have been a tweet Neil Druckmann posted, but you know, Ellie has in her room in the flashback the poster of Mortal Kombat 2, and it's up. And I love the fact that they wanted to get it into the movie, and Neil and all the people, all the legal people within on The Last of Us were like, we're freaking Warner Brothers. There shouldn't be a reason why we can't get the game on the show because they own the rights, which I think was so cool.
Yeah.
I thought it was brilliantly done.
Yeah, and we're gonna get to all that. So let's go around the horn. Let's start with you, Kyle. What were your thoughts on the episode? What did you like about it? What didn't you like about it?
So what's interesting with this episode, I went in a bit differently than I did with the other episodes because I had played this DLC very recently compared to the game that I had played a couple years prior. So I had better memory of the game, of the DLC, and of what was going to happen in this episode. And I thought it was an outstanding episode of TV, especially just for the sake of adaptation, because you're talking about what they did to adapt it. They covered all the right notes, but they also, I think, added and brought their own spin to the relationship between Ellie and Riley, because just once again in the performances of Bella Ramsey and Storm Reed in this episode, you're getting something that is based on the game, but also feels a little bit different and feels like it's an adaptation rather than just a shot for shot replication of what we saw from the game. So I really did love how they portrayed these characters and their relationship. And there were moments in here that truly felt genuine in terms of an acting standpoint. I didn't see them as actors. I saw them as just the characters themselves, as if they were real. and I really love that part of the episode.
So I know Destiny, you had put out a tweet that you said you had to go back and rewatch it, but you weren't too thrilled about it. Tell us your thoughts on this episode and why you didn't like it, or if you did.
I mean, I didn't completely hate it. I think this episode is interesting. I think again, like I think the rest of the show, the series is good. The series is good no matter what. Even its weakest episodes are still good. You know what I mean? And so this one though, I think is this one is a mixed bag because you had the last episode where it was slowed down, right? And then we got the humanity of Joel. We got him kind of immersing himself in the town, right? It was kind of like a breath of fresh air for Joel to just be able to sit there, relax, and talk. Then you get Tommy in there, and then you get Ellie in there. So it was kind of like a slower episode, but it was like a really good character driven episode. This one, again, a character driven episode between Ellie and Riley, but it's very slow, I think, in its pacing. In terms of how does this connect to the main story? So we have another flashback episode, which they gave us a lot in the beginning. And then this one kind of just feels like a standstill, but not a standstill that moves the plot forward. It just feels like a standstill just to have one. I don't want to get too much into like the game aspect of it, but I think this might be the one change that they could have elevated from the game or excuse me, directly adapted from the game, because the way that it plays out in the DLC is slightly different than it plays out in the episode, only in the sense that the DLC connects exactly to what's happening in regards to Joel's unconsciousness, which we see in the previous episode to this. And this one kind of ignores that and just makes it like specifically about this moment in time. And I think you feel that. I think you feel that stuck.
And there's the whole element in the game where, like, there's a whole Ellie action sequence interspersed between the flashbacks and the present day. So, like, Ellie has to go and find, like, tools for Joel or some type of thing to help Joel out, and that is completely abandoned in the show. And instead, they just have her in the house with him the entire time the flashback occurs. So it becomes more kind of just her stuck in that house. I do agree with Destiny. I feel like the present day stuff, it felt like, that stuff could just not even be existent in this episode, even though they were trying to tie it into the, part with Ellie trying to save a friend. But there is more, I think, in the game that definitely is not just connected, but it is, I think, more action-packed. That once again, we had this discussion, I think it was last week, where it does feel like the show, in a way, is kind of cutting corners and trying to be less of an action series and more of just a drama. And we can get into that more as we talk about it. But
yeah. So I had played, or I watched the walkthrough of this, so I was completely familiar. I liked it. It was really so as you was talking about Destiny, it was more of this reminded me. So the notes I took, it reminded me just like Billstown opening.
Yeah.
We see Ellie and we see Joel for that, and then we get a flashback, and then how that whole sequence did. I thought Storm Reid was unbelievable. I thought she was unbelievable in what she did, and how she did it. She just came across really friendly. She came across very, but a little assertive, and that because she was part of the Fireflies, or she was going to be part of the Fireflies, and so Marlene was going to send her off. So it was interesting. Some of the same shots that I noticed was, it was the same two shot that we were getting across the bridge when they were making their way across the bridge, and right when they started in Boston. Um, so that was the same two shot. One of my favorite shots was the mall.
Yep.
That mall scene was just go through the doors, take a right, and just stand there. And it was one of those things where it just having it light up one by the other, by the other, by the other was beautiful. And then just having her silhouette right there. I mean, silhouette shots are always hard to pull off, anyways.
Yep.
This one was unbelievable. Um, the merry-go-round scene. Uh, I mean, this is a little later on in the later on in the episode, but just, I mean, part of the game, okay, and just one of those things where you go, wow, this is really cool. They're actually pulling this off, and when it's done right, you go, okay, this is really good. Um, and yeah, it's just phenomenal in how they did it. Um,
I
so this is the first time. This is the first time we see a stalker. So this is the first time we see a stalker. We've seen runners, we've seen bloaters, and we've seen clickers. Up until this point, we had never seen a stalker. And so, that being said, this was the first stalker we got. And so, I mean, the makeup was really, I really like the makeup in I really like the makeup in this that they did. It wasn't as good as the bloater per se, but it was still really good. And the final thing, I thought that exchange, like when Ellie was going to leave, and then she comes back. That close up, those close ups in there were amazing. And so overall, for what it was, and I agree with whoever said it. The fact is that you know you we see at the end of the episode she's trying to find something, and then eventually she does find the needle and starts stitching Joel up. Um, but yeah, I mean, for what it was, for a flashback um, episode, I thought it was good. Now let me ask you guys this: which one? Because now we've had two. We've had Billstown. Now we've had this one. Which particular episode did you like, and why?
For me, I think honestly, I don't know if I can pick a favorite because the thing is it's about intimacy between all these characters, and they take that moment to do that. And I thought both of them have their merits. Like, we get to understand Ellie a little bit better, which I thought was great, and see her humanity. Like, she has a crush on her. She has a crush on Storm Reed's Riley. And you can tell that there is that flicker. That is their flame that's there, and it's a more. I think of that too. Like, there's their relationship, and then there's Bill and oh my god, I forget the
Right.
other. Yeah, Bill and Greg's relationship. Like, it's like that's the more mature version of what is going on with Ellie and Riley. And I do think that that's great. And I also want to say this. For me, I didn't watch episode 6 until today, so I binged episode 6 and 7 together. And I wonder if binging it that way made me appreciate it more.
Mm.
Because it went one right into the other. Now, I get the whole, I think it's great that they didn't just drop it all at once, but I wonder if audiences, if they go back and they binge 6 and 7 together, if they might have a better impact. I thought one of the most beautiful things in the story is when Ellie just gets that baseball bat and she just starts bashing in all of the glass cases, and you see her hurt, like she is just in so much pain, and that pain manifests in that rage. And I love that they are sitting together, and they're all, and Storm is like Ellie's like, what do we do here? Because they both got bit. And they're like, well, and Storm pulls out the gun and lays it with Ellie, and she's like, well, we can do this the easy way or we can go the hard way. And I think that was, and just a shot of them together and just Ellie beaten up and both of them exhausted and torn up. Like, it was such a raw, great moment.
Yeah, no, I just this whole, I mean, having so after, and everybody I think that watches the show knows this, that after every episode, so they have what they call behind the scenes, and they used to do this for House of the Dragon too. And so there is so much useful information. For example, they actually had to bring a Ferris wheel or a merry-go-round in and actually do this. And it was, I mean, so inside behind the episode, they were talking about, having to reconstruct the mall and, which shops they were doing and everything else. I mean, I thought, and we'll get to it a little bit later, but the arcade, like trying to put together a whole arcade, you know, um, I mean, I'm sure they used, something, but it's
Oh,
still
I can probably
amazing.
tell you what. So I've been part of them doing those kinds of scenes.
Mm.
I worked on Boss Level, and there's a scene in Boss Level where they're at the thing. A lot. I wouldn't be surprised though if the Mortal Kombat thing was something they actually had, like the Warner Brothers could find and they brought in to do. But there's a lot of those things that they do with video playback. So they'll start, they'll hook them all up together on maybe like I think like one signal, and they will play it all together at like a video clip, and
Mm.
then everything will happen. So I wonder if that's what they did. It's, and I love the arcade. That arcade part was just so much fun because you get to see Ellie and Riley actually be kids. And I thought it was great, the whole Victoria's Secret scene. I thought that was very interesting because it kind of shows like, that women in this post-apocalyptic world, they don't think about the luxury of lingerie anymore, which I think was very interesting because it's like, they're just trying to survive. They don't have the luxury of thinking about, you know, having lingerie on the mind, like going to the store to get. So I thought that was also very
And
interesting.
that's what kind of connects to the episode you watched prior to this one,
Yeah.
episode 6, where she's reading a diary and Ellie's looking at this diary of what it was like when girls were talking
Oh,
about boys.
yeah,
And it's like
yeah,
she's seeing the world through the eyes of those before the apocalypse happened, and that is really, really, it reminds me of like the little kids that grew up with COVID-19, the pandemic era, where a bunch of these kids may be going to kindergarten for the first time or all this, they had to do it via Zoom or some
yeah,
type of call. And it's like, think about, like, there are some kids out there that don't know what a world is like pre-pandemic,
yeah.
and we'll never know that probably. I mean, unless things get even better. But like, it's one of those things where it's like I'm watching this show and you can kind of connect it to present day.
And
Yeah.
I wanted to add this though too, and I thought this was going back on the whole binging the episodes together. I thought that made episode 7 even more powerful with the fact that they did that intercutting between present and past, where it's like Ellie is crying over Joel. She's like, "I don't leave me here. Don't leave. Like you can't leave me. Like that whole thing." And then her, I thought that was great with the fact like playing into it. It's like, oh, okay, like I can understand why she's so frantic right now to save Joel because she loves Joel, and that's the only thing that she's got left is Joel. So, oh my god, I thought, yeah, I had a great experience watching both of them together like that. So,
To David's earlier question though, which episode do you prefer? The Billstown or this one? I personally prefer Billstown more. I think that episode is arguably one of the best episodes of television in recent memory, and I think that this is a good episode. I think pretty much all of the episodes of The Last of Us have been pretty good, but I think Billstown just has a little more oomph to it. Like it has definitely more of a focused, I think, storyline between Bill and Frank, and then you do have how that connects with Joel and Ellie. I still very much enjoy this episode though, and Tyler is right. Like they are two different types of episodes. One is more about, I mean, they're both in a way about love, but one is about
mature
love, kind of like childhood innocence, and then the other one is about middle-aged men going through a the rest of their lives together. And it's interesting how they both end, because like they get to decide their fate in Billstown, but in this episode they don't get to decide their fate, at least from what we know. I mean, they don't show some of that. I will say, I don't know if we're kind of like bouncing all around. I wasn't a fan of the way this episode ended. I thought, for me, the DLC ends kind of abruptly, but I think there's more of a like reason for that. Whereas in this episode, I thought that the way they ended it with like Ellie and Joel, I don't know, it didn't feel right to me. I kind of wish they ended it on Ellie and Riley.
Well,
yeah,
they kind of did, but they kind of didn't. I mean, it was one of those things where I understand why they didn't. I mean, I I'll be honest. I thought that, I thought that Ellie or Riley was going to make the choice, and even though it was one of those things where, like in Billstown, he loves him so much. I thought that Ellie was going to, I thought what you're going to have is Riley just say, okay, you can go ahead and do it,
Oh,
and
does that
then
happen
the
in the
gunshot
DLC?
happens and it just cold black. That's the way I thought it was going to happen.
It doesn't happen like that, Tyler, in the DLC.
Right, yeah, it doesn't happen like that in the DLC. And that's the thing. Like I feel like that's where they could have expanded. Of course, we probably don't want to see child death or whatever, but they did that with Henry, right? They didn't show us necessarily that they didn't show us the graphicness of it, but they showed us enough, right, to get the point through. But I think here is where they could have expanded the story, is we could have gotten that realization that Ellie is not transforming. I think that's where the show should have digged into, since they've done a great job adding, little things here and there, especially in these last couple episodes where drastic things haven't changed as much as Billstown or even Henry and Sam's story. Those were like the biggest changes. Here could have been a subtle addition as to where you have Riley and Ellie in that mall, and then they're going out in a bang or whatever, and then Riley makes that sad decision and Ellie has to deal with it. Or if they didn't want to get that sad, because there's the argument that maybe they just didn't want to go that sad again, since since the last couple episodes have been pretty heavy on the sadness and the killing, then they could have given us again Ellie having that realization she's not changing, and I think that would have been fine. Storm could have been out of the Storm Reed. Riley could have been out of the picture, and it could have just been
Could
Ellie
you have done something like a week later, and not for example,
or just a gunshot, or just a gunshot.
So I think if we remember the first episode or second episode correctly, I think it's the first episode. She gets taken not too long by the Fireflies after that moment, because remember, tells her she's like, what were you doing outside the QZ, right? That's when she gets captured, is by Marlene. She finds her in that mall. So I think it even could have went that way, where she was discovered by Marlene, and then they could have ended that way. David, to kind of bring in your idea of like the 1 week later, or a couple days, or a couple hours, whatever. They could have did whatever time is nothing in this show anymore. But I think that would have been a better way to do it. I don't know, it just feels stopped. And taking in the DLC, Ellie is finding stitches and medicine and band-aids for Joel because he's suffering. And they've done interconnected episodes before. Like, I just don't understand why they made this choice. However, I don't want to like shit on the episode. The episode has really good moments. I think the relationship between the girls is very well. Storm Reed is acting her butt off. Bella Ramsey's, she eats every time. I loved seeing her life in the QZ, so they did give us some background there. One of my favorite moments, though, of this episode is the beautiful, beautiful rendition, the beautiful music box carousel rendition of Cure's Friday, I'm in Love. So that's what they're listening to as they're going around the carousel. And it caught my ear the first time, I watched it. Normally I'm not, Kyle's really good at like paying attention to scores. I'm really good at catching songs. Like, so if there's a song, like, that's in there, that's already established, like I'll be like, oh wait, what is that? Like Bridgerton does this thing where they have pop music and stuff, like, but it's in like that period style, like the Baroque style or whatever, like piano and violin stuff. So you're like, wait, am I listening to like Meg the Stallion, but it's like a violin version, right? Or like, Jordan Peele does that a lot with his trailers. But anyway, so my favorite moment of this episode was the Cure Friday, I'm in Love, because those kind of songs, I know Take on Me is like a popular one from the second game. So it's like a really cool, like,
and
fusion.
I thought it was really cool too. Talking about music, I thought Jessica Mason doing "Never Let Me Down Again" at the end of episode 6. I was bawling my eyes out.
We just, we're going to take a step back, but So Craig was trying to find this, piece of music that, he was trying to find this piece of music, and nobody could do it. And so what Tyler's referring to is the behind this, after the episode, behind the scenes, he was trying to find this in short order. And his daughter, his 18-year-old daughter could actually sing very, very well. And so he's like, honey, I need you to, just do this one verse. And it's funny because 2 weeks went by. And so he says to his daughter, did you take care of what I asked you to do? And she's like, no. She's like, can you do it? It's going to be on TV. And of course, she bangs it out within 2-3 hours. But it's just one of those things where it's just magical to hear that, the creator, one of the creators of the show, the showrunner's daughter, is actually singing the cover to this.
Beautiful.
And
it was
gorgeous.
And it's like, and that's the thing too, that carried me into episode 7. So it's like, that was like another kind of experience to be. And then the chaos of her, I can understand and feel for Ellie. She's like if you ever have a loved one that's in a situation where they're dying like that, the drama of that and just the intensity of that, it was phenomenal.
So so I'm going to backtrack a little bit, but you had the opportunity of watching 6 and 7 together.
Yeah.
For Kyle and myself, being gamers and whatnot, and I call that the most emotional scene of the whole game.
Oh my God!
And
the end, or are you talking about in the bedroom?
When they're in Jackson. And by the way, we're taking a step back here, but so she doesn't run away.
Yes.
In the series, nonetheless, okay, that scene when Joel and Ellie are having that, and that's what you were talking about. This is what they had to worry about.
I love that so much.
That was the most powerful scene in the game for me. And if you ever get a chance, and you can YouTube this,
go
watch the motion capture. Go watch the behind the scenes version between Ashley Johnson and Troy Baker. It's one of the coolest things you're ever going to see because it's just remarkable. And everybody, that's one of the 4 or 5 scenes in this game, in this show, that people were itching, dying, chomping at the bit to see because they wanted to see, okay, did they get it right? And as Neil said, it's one of those things where they had their own version. They
Yeah.
didn't want to copy Troy and Ashley.
Yeah.
They wanted to have their own
Yeah.
version.
And I think
Anyways,
they did such a good job with that. And I love that. She's like, I've lost everybody. Everybody has either left me or are fucking dead. And you are the only thing left in my life. And she basically like says, like, I care about you. And why don't you and I just thought that whole scene, and also him saying, I thought that was pretty bold of Joel to be like, you have no idea what loss is.
yeah.
And she's like, well, I'll top you on that.
Yeah,
I've lost everybody. So
To get back to this episode, though, I'm very
And
curious.
so sorry, quick correction. I said Friday I'm in love. I just like Heaven. I'm so sorry. I forget.
Okay.
I forget. They sound similar in my mind. Yeah.
See, I was like, wait, what? Because I didn't recognize Friday I'm in Love. I'm like,
yeah, just like
that?
Heaven. Yeah,
No.
I get the titles confused.
Yes,
I get the titles confused. I literally do that all the time.
As long as it's by the same artist, then
The Cure.
you're okay.
But, going back to the this episode though, one of my favorite and most anticipated sequences was the photo booth scene.
Yes.
And
so good.
I have to ask Destiny, because you've also played the game and you played the DLC. What do you think of the way that they adapted that photo booth sequence? Because they made a change.
I don't remember. So like I don't remember the change to that. So you'll have to.
The change is that it actually worked.
Yep.
Because
I caught that.
Because me and David played it very recently. The change is that in the DLC, they do all the poses, but then when they go to print out the actual photo, it doesn't print out. So now the big change is that
she's got the memory.
Ellie has a picture or a number of pictures of her and Riley, even though they're kind of,
faded.
Yeah. But I think that was really interesting because it's like now there is an element of them actually preserving more of Riley's memory in the show than they did in the game.
Not only that, I mean, if you wanted to take it a step further, that's a little foreshadowing for later on in the episode. Like, one of them is gonna, I mean, if you really, really wanted to read into it, that could be foreshadowing that, hey, this is going to go sideways and this is going to go south one way or the other. If you didn't know.
Yeah.
Because if they did come out, printed.
Also, faded. It's a faded photograph. So that's also like Riley's memory. I want. I didn't think about that. Mise-en-scène,
I mean,
man. Gotta love it.
Some of these shots, I gotta say, like this shot here with see if I have it here. This shot here by the DP and how they were able to do that is unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
And how they're able to, I mean, it just blows my mind. Not only can they replicate the game, but they can replicate like shots like this, and it's unbelievable how they're able to do this. And this is where, I've said this before. The fact is that you can see where their money went. I mean, they reportedly spent between $10 to $15 million an episode, and between the trailer of the show and the episodes we've seen so far, they have not half-assed this. Okay, they have not half-assed this at all. They are going full tilt, and I love it. I love it because they know better. Because the minute that they would, fans would just, they would riot. I mean, for lack of a better word, they'd riot because they know this is like the one thing with the story that you just can't get wrong. And, I love this. I mean, so it's one of those things where this is the first time, I think, and I could be wrong about this, I think this is the first time that we've ever seen a DLC of
Yeah.
something on screen live
Yeah.
action.
Yep,
So
definitely.
I mean, they have just continually knocked this out of the park.
I want to see them adapt the Spider-Man PS4 game and bring on that Black Cat DLC. Am I right, Destiny?
Man, that was insane. That would literally.
Good luck trying to get this right from Sony.
To see that.
Bunch of teenagers having the time of their lives watching that, man.
Yeah, good luck. Yeah, good luck trying to get the rights.
They have not brought Black Cat into the MCU, I think, or to the Spider-Man stories for a reason, I think.
Hey, yay!
She's simply too sexy. Yeah.
Well, I mean, look, I'll just to your point, and I know we're not going to go off on a tangent here, but
yeah.
They could look. It's PG-13. They could very easily do it.
Oh, and they can also go as far as they want. Like, remember an Iron Man.
Tyler, it's a totally another YouTube channel.
Well, this will be another show for another time.
I was just
yeah. But moving
Trust
forward,
me, I want to go there. I want to go there. I'm being very quiet right now.
Okay, so let's talk about what's coming up this week, and then we're going to get to a couple of viewer comments. So everybody that's played the game, I think you're the only one, Tyler. What did you think of the promo or the little tease that you saw?
I thought that was
where
interesting.
It's going?
I thought that was interesting, and it's very interesting that it's like it looks like a religious sect, like a cult within the apocalypse. So I think that's very interesting, and it's also I think that's going to be. I mean, I can't wait for Ellie to fucking show them up a little bit.
Yeah.
And
it's going to get good.
And I think
that's all I'm going to say.
And I think also, like, if anything is a preview for what is to come, it is Ellie getting taught how to shoot by Joel in episode 6 and going into now episode 8. It's like, she's about to make these guys wish they never met her, and I can't wait for that. I think that's going to be
payoff.
Cool. Yeah.
What do you think about the teaser that you saw? I mean, you know what's going to happen, but what did you think and how it's going to play out?
I am excited because I mean the episode ended. And this episode with Riley was my most anticipated, but knowing what's to come, I am very excited for next week's episode. It looks perfectly cast, and it looks like I mean, we only have 2 episodes left, so we'll have to see, how much they adapt and whether we'll have, enough time for the events in the game in the show. But I think they'll figure out a way to do it. I'm very excited for next week, though. I'm very excited.
Destiny, what do you think about next week? I mean, and how it's going to go? You've seen it, but what do you think? Are you going to rewatch it? What do you think? And how was it?
Yeah, I think episode 8 is going to be a treat for the fans. I think it's going to be fun. Excuse me. I think it has Bella Ramsey's best performance of the series.
Ooh. Okay.
And then you get some people I think Troy Baker I think has said he's coming to town.
Yeah, we saw a clip of him.
Oh,
yeah. Seen the
so
teaser. We're finally going to get Troy Baker.
Video game Daddy's coming.
Daddy's home.
Daddy's home. Yeah.
Troy Baker is finally going to make his appearance.
Home. Yeah. So Daddy's coming.
Yeah. So that's going to be good.
Series. So how exciting is that?
And by the way, speaking of, I didn't see Ashley Johnson in this, so she's probably going to be either in she's got to be in either this.
Oh yeah, for like the birth.
Yeah, so I don't know. We'll see how that whole thing plays out.
You guys know she's having a baby.
Well, in the scene, there was in the preview, they show her holding
a child.
Yeah, a child.
So maybe
that's in the preview.
Yeah, but you know that. I remember once. I can say this now because the show got canceled. No, it didn't. Sandman.
Be careful.
There was a Sandman thing, and I texted Kyle. I was like, "Oh, did you see this episode of Sandman?" He probably doesn't remember now, but
I do.
he was like, "What?" Anyway, they ended up releasing what I was talking about, but it was like months. Like what was like 2 months later.
Oh my
It was,
god.
there was
And you know,
a
that's the one thing when I was thinking
episode.
about this episode, Destiny. I
Yeah.
do wonder if like this episode could have been cut out of this season and they release it a couple months later like they did with the regular DLC.
Yeah.
And I wonder how
That's
that would
a
have played out because
Yeah, like in the interim, like especially
Yes.
knowing that they're getting a season 2 now, they could have just released
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
schedule.
Yeah. That would have been
That
fun.
would've
Yeah, they
been-
could have, but they
man,
would have
Okay.
missed. They would have missed a week because they probably wouldn't have just put out episode 8 that soon. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they still
So
have to
let's
figure
get-
out what the heck they're gonna do about the
'Cause-
Oscars. So
Yeah. We'll figure that out.
yeah.
So let's take some of these comments. So, Coco, as one who's played the games, this episode meant the most to me because I played this more recently in January, so I remember most of this and I could see the accuracy. Yeah, I mean, I thought it was, for what it was for DLC, I thought it was really accurate. I mean, it wasn't, thing by thing. And, they were able to put comedy in there, which you were talking about, Tyler, the whole Victoria's Secrets thing.
Yep. That
I mean,
was
how
funny.
how Riley was able to actually, put a quib in there. And she says, "What?" She's like, "I wonder what you would look like, in one of those things." It's just comical in that respect. But dropping a show in a binge format can make this is what you were talking about earlier, watching 6 and 7. Dropping a show in a binge format can make a show short-lived, but when you make a weekly timed show, you get to appreciate and enjoy it more than just a binge format of a show. No, absolutely, absolutely.
but
and this is where Netflix, to me, in my opinion, they have a problem because
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, I'm just gonna take a show, Cobra Kai. Okay, all you got to do is take a look at a show like Cobra Kai, for example, and what ends up happening is that they drop the whole thing. Let's say it's 10, 12 episodes. You watch the whole thing in 2-3 days, and it's done. And you're having to wait another 12 months. Where this is one of those things. And another show that really did a week by week really well was WandaVision. WandaVision was when they did that in 2021. That was, was I don't want to say sketchy, but it was one of those things where it wasn't as popular. By the time that hit the season finale, that was the number one show in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And that led right into, Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness, whatever you thought of the film, but that was huge. So let me ask you guys this. Would you rather watch your favorite show binged, or would you rather watch it week by week, Tyler? Week by week or binged?
Me?
Yeah.
Me?
Yeah.
Sorry. I thought you said
Yeah,
Kyle.
that's okay. Week
It's
by
all
week
good.
or binged.
So, like one of my
And why?
favorite shows is True Detective, and I do like binging it because it's so fast paced when it gets deeper into the season. I don't know about that, dude, because I do like the week by week because it lets you marinate on each episode and lets you really get into the detail of each episode. When it's like binge eating, you're just shoveling it down your throat all at once, and it's like, I think the week by week, and that's also why I love The Boys, because The Boys did it week by week by week, not all at once. And I think that's a good way to do it because also let's talk about the fact too. You need to be able to keep these shows in people's mouths. And I think that's the biggest fear that you will have when you release it in a binge format. And it's I want people to be talking about. I haven't finished it yet, but I'm a huge F1 Drive to Survive fan. Shout out to my sister Faith, who's a huge fan of that as well. The series is phenomenal, but binging it all at once it's fun as hell to do, but it's also I get that whole thing oh, we're done. Now I have to wait, as you were saying. we have to wait another year for this show to come out, and now we can't. So I get the merits of both, because sometimes you just want, there might be just people that just want to get it over and done with, but then there are just some that want to actually enjoy it and marinate with it. So I see the merit in both.
Yeah. Kyle, your favorite show, whatever it is, would you rather week by week or binge it all at once? Why?
I agree with Tyler. I think it really just depends on the show itself, because there are shows that I watch that are much better when they are binged. There are other shows I watch that I think are better week to week. Um, I mean, looking at House of the Dragon, I thought was a great week to week series, especially since there were like time jumps. And I haven't binged it since it aired, so I'd be very curious to see how it works on a binge, because that the week to week time jumps might be a little bit more distracting in a binge watch. Animated series, I think, for some reason, work better on a binge than they
Yep,
do
I agree. I
week to
agree.
week. One, because they're so short, but in the case of the one I'm watching now, Star Wars: The Bad Batch, it feels like I've gotten like 3 or 4 episodes for the past couple weeks that have just been what you would call filler, and it doesn't feel like I'm getting the story that I want to get to. If I have a binge model watching that, then I think it works. But I think for the success of the shows, though, it's better to release them week to week, because unless you're lucky, like a Wednesday or Stranger Things, usually the amount of discussion towards that show doesn't really go anywhere if it's all released at once.
And I would say this as well. I think it's all about the marketing as well.
Yes.
Like HBO is killing it with the marketing
Oh.
for The Last of Us, all the way up until release. And it's like with Netflix, and I've heard this from directors, they really don't market their stuff well at all. And that's a huge problem, because it's basically you see it for the first week that it's out, like on its front page, and then it
Yep.
just disappears.
It's gone.
And it's like, then you got to have people be the ones to talk about it. And it's like, I do think too, that's the big difference as well, that you week to week, they do it very well week to week, because they also give you just enough at the end of the episode to be like, oh shit, this is about
Well,
to
that's
be
what
really
that's
good.
that's what I call the oh shit moment.
Yep.
It's in that 5 to 7 minute range. One of the greatest shows to ever do this, and I love this show, and I haven't watched the new one, is Dexter. Dexter is one of those shows when you were watching it that invariably, even in season 1, they had that oh shit moment in the last 5 to 7 minutes. I mean, I think it's one of the top 10 shows ever put on TV, but nonetheless, cinematography, story, whatever. But nonetheless, it had that oh shit moment that you go, oh shit, I need to tune in next week. That
Yep.
hook. And so with that hook, okay, if you're able to hook that with people in the first 3 minutes and the last 3 minutes, you got them. Just like anything else. Destiny, your favorite show, and what would you rather watch it week to week or binge?
I mean, David, you and I are old enough to remember the old days before streaming. So, it does not matter to me, really. Binging was a thing that came, and I mean, I appreciate it. So, I can still handle the week to week releases. So, I don't really have much of a. I mean, obviously, binging is great, but I think the conversation is better when it's week to week, you know?
Yeah,
that's
no,
Agreed.
I think so. I think the model of binging it is terrible because, as I said, within 2 or 3 days it's done, and you've got to wait another 12 months. However, I get it. Netflix, that is in what you were talking about earlier, Tyler. Netflix is one of those things where you just put something on and it's gone.
Yeah.
It's gone because they don't market, they don't do anything. I mean, unless you're talking about a Wednesday or a Stranger Things or a Cobra Kai or The Crown or any one of these shows that are the most streamed popular shows, and that's a fact. I personally, I would say if I had, and I do remember the week to week, and it kept you guessing and it kept you wondering, and it's
Oh
like
yeah.
I understand the week to week, and I think I would probably, if I had to put a dollar on it, I would say week to week, just because that's the way.
Yeah.
Just because it's one of those things where this is how we started out, okay,
Yeah.
and so you always have to go back to your roots, and one thing that is never going to go away is a week to week. I call it appointment television. That's my term. I call it appointment television. Whether it was a Law and Order, whether it was a CSI, whether it was an ER, whether it was a Friends, it didn't matter what the show was. You were there in front of your television at Friday or Thursday at 9 p.m.
Yeah, you
watching that.
were.
And that's why
CBS, man. Do you
it
remember
blew up.
Flash? You remember Flashpoint and
Yes.
Numbers? Do you remember
I
Numbers?
love Numbers. Rob Morrow
Oh my
was
God.
amazing for that.
So that was the stuff that I loved, and that's why I do love the week to week, because it's like, oh my God, I gotta wait a week to talk about
One of the
this
greatest
is why
shows
HBO is still in the business, because HBO is still doing that week to week strategy.
Yep. Oh yeah.
And
But I will say this about
Yeah.
HBO though. They've had content they've had outstanding content for the last
40
20
years.
years.
Yeah.
40 years.
Whether it's The
40 years,
Sopranos,
yeah.
whether it's The Wire, whether it's Last of Us,
Yeah.
whether it's, House of the Dragon, it doesn't matter. And
Yeah.
those people that are, even if those people that hated Game of Thrones, the last season, me
Yeah.
included, okay, they were going to come back no matter what. So let's get to a couple more comments here and say, the show's gotten 1-to-1 so far. The accuracy is absolutely incredible. I don't think there is more accurate video game representation in moving TV show. No, I would totally agree with that.
the
Agreed.
Warcraft slander.
No, it's just one of those things where I think so. This goes to the writing. This goes to not only the writing of Craig Mazin, who basically, he was coming off doing an amazing. Chernobyl was another short little series where he was known for, but this goes to the writing. This goes to the story of The Last of Us. This goes to everything about it, and I think that you're right. It is the number one show that And by the way, that was one thing Neil Druckmann and Craig Mazin did not want to do. They didn't want to put all these they wanted the subtitle little Easter eggs to go, oh, is that Dina? Oh, is that this? Or was that? The little conversation when Joel and Ellie were talking at the fire.
Yeah.
And she wanted to be an astronaut. And that was, straight out of The Last of Us 2. And so, no spoilers.
It's
No
all good. Oh
spoilers.
yeah, it's all good.
So
That's
it's one
cool.
of those things where when you watch it, when you play it, you'll see it. Nonetheless.
Oh, and then they were talking about it too. Who is the little Easter egg from episode 6? The girl that she sees. That's a big one. I love that.
Yeah. I'm not going to say anything about it.
Yeah,
I'm not
yeah.
gonna spoil anything about it. But nonetheless.
But what was the part that they talked about? She and her are on a horse, and she is talking.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm going to let you find out on your own.
Oh, God dang it. Okay.
I promise. I'm
But
going to let you find out on your own. It's worth it.
Since I remember it, I do want to discuss. We didn't discuss. I thought I think one of my favorite moments of this episode was Ellie kissing Riley, and it was what I really loved about that moment was it was something that I think I've rarely seen in live action, where after you see someone kiss someone, it's like just the way that Bella reacted. It was like, I finally told my truth. I finally showed this person how I feel.
She showed her soul.
And now I'm excited to go forward. And it's such a tragic scene, especially if you know what's going to happen, because then right after that happens, then she gets bit, and that moment of like my heart just broke for her in that moment where she's, I think Tyler, you brought it up, the baseball bat. Like that sequence, like Ellie just thinks that oh my God, I have the future ahead of me right now with this girl that I'm in love with, and she loves me
Yeah.
back, and she's like telling her to stay, and she's like, okay, I'll stay. And there's something so real about that moment that I rarely see. Like, I mean, you can see sometimes like it's a sweet moment or two, but here, like, it truly felt real. And once
It was
again, just
completely
like Dylan,
genuine.
yes,
It
yes,
was genuine, is what you're trying to get at. And it's one of those things where, she kisses her and she's like, I don't know if she feels the same way. And then when she's like, stay. And then when she's like, yeah, okay. And then when you have that happen, it's like, oh, okay. So they love to foreshadow in the show so far, like how episode we see Dean in the background while Ellie is eating. Yeah. So
Yeah.
this is what you were talking about.
Yeah.
So
I thought that was
that is
super
one of
cool,
those
man.
things where, and okay. I'm not going to say much. Okay. All I'll say is
But
they love to put Easter eggs in there.
and here's the thing too. I think David, you brought this up when you were talking about it on social media, and you were like, why didn't they just get the actress to come in and do it? And I wonder, because thinking from a production side of things, I wonder if she wasn't available, so they had a stand in,
yeah.
do the scene so they could get it done. Somebody that would look almost identical to her, because
That's what
that
I had
could,
a question last week.
yeah,
I was really
yeah,
curious because they've done
yeah.
that
I think
before.
it's because they do that all the time, because sometimes the people that they want aren't available, or they're trying to
Well,
still figure out who they wanted to use. So it's like, oh,
so
okay.
can I? So how far can we go? I mean, I don't want. I'm not going to spoil anything, but I just want.
No, well, I
So
mean,
what I was going to
we can
suggest
say
is,
that like the
if you're
character
going
of
to do
Dina,
this, and
which
they've
is
already greenlit
the
season
one.
2,
Yeah.
so that's not a
Uh
problem.
Oh,
oh.
I think.
Uh-oh.
Come on. All
You're
right, guys,
back.
my
yeah.
internet's getting
I
a
think
little
we should
shoddy
just
here,
end
so
the
bear with
stream,
us.
David. I think
Okay,
you might be
okay.
having issues, but
Yeah, well, we're going to momentarily, but what I'm going to say is this: that what if I were them? Okay, I'd go get the face model that they
I
used.
think that's what they did. Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah. Yeah.
No,
I think
no,
she's perfect
not.
for it.
They didn't. They didn't. She wasn't. She wasn't the girl that you saw. She
Oh.
was not the girl.
Okay. Okay. So it could have
So,
been a stand-in that they just wanted to use,
that
which
being said,
as I
so
said,
what they did was right. What they did was they used her face, okay, and they had an actress, Laura Bailey, okay, she played Dina.
oh,
I think what you do, okay, is you go and you go get the actress, okay, the person who is a face model. I believe she's an actress. She's on YouTube. I mean, I don't
yeah,
know if she's YouTube famous, but nonetheless, you go get her. If you want authenticity, you want to be real, and you want this to be as good as possible, you go get her. That's what you
yeah,
do. So,
yeah.
anyways,
I'm
but
excited, man.
yeah. So, guys, it's this is yeah, this is episode 7, Left Behind. Uh, yeah, this is. I mean, I know what happens. Kyle knows what happens. Destiny knows what happens. Tyler's in the dark, and he's gonna have fun next week. So, yeah, but
Let's
what?
go.
So, nonetheless, come back Sunday night because it was just a little, and plus we had the SAGs last night, which I'll be talking with Matthew Anderson in about 20 minutes right after this episode airs. But nonetheless, come back on Sunday night after the episode, and we're going to be doing this thing all over again for episode 8. And then we will figure something out. Hopefully, HBO Max is smart enough that they push back the episode up on Friday like they did for the Super Bowl, because it's going to be hellacious if they put it on 12. Anyway, guys,
I truly cannot
so yeah, as I
imagine
said,
them
that's
not.
it. I just look, if they did it for the Super Bowl, that arguably the biggest event in the country. This is the second biggest event in the country. They'll probably announce it next week. You know,
They
like
should.
Wednesday or Thursday next
They
week.
don't
Hey
wanna-
guys, we're gonna move the finale
Yeah, they
because you're not gonna. The only thing I can think of why they wouldn't do it is because of the debacle last year. I mean, not debacle is not the
Yeah.
right word, but the events that transpired last year. That's it. But nonetheless, okay, guys. So he's Tyler, he's Kyle, she's Destiny. I'm David. This has been The Last of Us episode 7. Take care, be safe, have a great day, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye, guys.
Bye, guys.